ain't doing it like Lil Tay. Lil Tay is Lil Tay. Lil Tay out here. Lil Tay out here on the top of Beverly Hills. I run this. I'm only 9 years old. Me and Rice Gum are friends.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Right Opinion, the home of a twat with too much free time, and Lil Tay. I don't normally go into such topics. I think it's best to leave the reaction commentator to their own devices. But every now and then something deeply disconcerting comes along, something that drives me to action. And today that person is Lil Tay. Lil Tay is a child, 9 years old to be specific. She likes to make that very clear in her videos, in case you hadn't fucking noticed.
I'm the youngest one doing it. I'm only 9 years old, but I'm investing in Mama's brand. I'm only 9 years old, and I'm only 9 years old. I got the keys to this car.
She's an Instagram star and basically posts a lot of videos of her gloating over her fortune, and boy, everyone just eats that shit up. She socializes with rap virtuosos such as Chief Keef. In case you didn't know, Lil Tay has a load of houses, and a load of cars, and a load of money. More money than you, the viewer. Yes, she be flexing, constantly there to remind you of how inadequate your own life is. On the surface it seems like another embarrassing new low for social media, but when I sat down to think about it, many questions came into my head, many things I couldn't shake, things that I had to find out for myself. Most people just point and laugh at her antics, but that's underselling what's going on here, isn't it? Today I will tell you a different story, maybe one of tragedy, maybe one of exploitation, that many man dare not to go. When I started this script it was a simple concept, observe and dissect the Lil Tay situation. However, as I researched more and more, the truth became worryingly clear to me. Am I going mad? There is a 9-year-old behaving like a stripper who just cashed her first paycheck and people are going, huh, that's weird. You know what? It is fucking weird. And today we're going to go into Lil Tay's mind. Back a few months ago, I did a video covering Wobe, Vicky and Martina Big, basically explaining why being transracial makes no sense, and much less sense in comparison than to being something like transgender. I gave Victoria here quite a roasting, and to be honest, she deserved it. However, that did not dissuade her, and 8 months on she's still wreaking havoc on the world as we know it. I hoped it was a fad that would fade into irrelevance, but given the fact that her and Danielle Bregoli have become the darlings of reaction commentary, they've only grown in prominence. Speaking of Danielle Bregoli, that is someone else I also covered, albeit briefly in my video The Dr. Phil Problem, in which I laid out the problem of using children's legitimate problems for entertainment and posed the question asking if this is really good for them. And like Vicky, she has continued to cause a nuisance wherever she decided to drag her exasperating persona. Now, I really should have put 2 and 2 together and realised that these 2 young bucks were on a collision course, but honestly I just wanted to block it out of my mind and never speak of these simpletons again. The gods, however, have no mercy on my soul, and in April 2018, Vicky and Danielle Bregoli decided to have a good bout of fisticuffs. This meant multiple orgasms from the reaction commentators who couldn't reach for their microphones fast enough. These 2 females are desperate for attention, and they will continue to get it, and you know what? I do not blame the people who give them it. At the end of the day, reaction commentators, news channels, they gotta cover what's interesting and what people want to hear, and if they don't cover it, someone else will. That's the name of the game, and really, although they played a component in promoting the ridiculous behavior, there's nothing new about that. They're just a response rather than a cause. In making a video, I have to accept that I might give them attention too. I just have to try and make sure it's not the sort that they desire. The thing about the culture that people like Wobe, Vicky and Danielle Bregoli have created is nothing short of a simple shock value concept, essentially human clickbait. If you were to have never heard of these people, you would inevitably be as intrigued as you would be disturbed. How can someone like Wobe Vicky claim to be black? How can Danielle Bregoli be so trashy at her age? These are simple questions, but questions that draw in an audience. However, when these simple questions are answered, people begin to lose interest, and therefore these characters create new questions and new ways to shock their audience that will keep them invested. This has definitely been aided by commentators who find new ways to spin these people's existence, whether it's finding out what Wobe Vicky sounds like normally, or whether it's the influx of Danielle Bregoli clones that fuel the juicy titles for these creators. These sorts of people are on a lifespan of fame, therefore it is necessary that they slowly escalate their antics, and Wobe Vicky and Danielle Bregoli's fight appears to be a climax in both their careers. However, if you can't top that, then your career may quickly nosedive, and you'll be running on empty in no time at all, and this is where Lil Tay comes into it. Squaring off with someone 6 years older than you may sound like a fucking stupid idea, but not to Lil Tay apparently, who used it as an easy way to platform her antics, and suddenly everyone was fascinated with this child. Why? How did we let this happen? Well, my last segment wasn't just meaningless waffle, it actually intertwines perfectly with what I'm about to state. What interested everyone initially about the girls aforementioned is that they shocked us, particularly with their audacity for such an apparent immaturity. However, as people become desensitized to that behavior, it will no longer shock them, it will become abnormal in a way. One thing that Brogoli and Vicky cannot change are their ages. And have you ever wondered why Lil Tay states her age so often? Yes. At first, Lil Tay stating her age may seem like a way to emphasize how successful she is in comparison to your elderly broke ass, prove that there is no justice in this world. But I propose that what she is actually doing, or what she is being prompted to do, is a marketing technique to ingrain the fact of her age into the viewer's head. It's shock value, and it's working an absolute riot. One piece of evidence of this act can be shown in her video where she visits Jake Paul, another role model of the internet. The video seems incredibly scripted, and Jake Paul himself at points seems prompted to bring up her relative age, as if it's meant to wow the viewers. Jake Paul, dressed in his virgin nonce-proof outfit, even says in his most convinced tone that now he thinks about it, it's super crazy that she's 9 years old.
I mean, you are the youngest flexer of the century. Yeah. That's a fact.
Yeah, and I'm only 9 years old.
Yeah. That's pretty crazy now that I think about it.
This is some of the most obvious subliminal marketing I've seen in a while. It mostly sounds like a broken record repeating the same phrases again and again, just bashing in the two simple facts: that she's 9 and she doesn't behave like she's 9. She's antithetic to what a 9-year-old should behave like. There's your persona. Find what the stereotype of yourself is and go with the opposite. Job done. You have your 15 or even 5 minutes of fame. It's important to note that Lil Tay still has plenty of leeway on YouTube, as she hasn't really uploaded content and most of it is on Instagram, on an account that is managed by Miranda Cosgrove of all people. I'm not sure if this is a joke, but I noticed that she ripped a quote from a Joe Wolf song for her bio. Though she doesn't come across to me as a classic rock person, what do I know? It is a bizarre timeline after all. The other appeal that Lil Tay has is the obvious, the one that we don't really need to touch on too much because it's basically been gone over before: money. Certain people have a great preoccupation with regards to how other people spend their money, and Lil Tay is no exception. Being able to flex is obviously going to attract her people who want to observe the life that she's living and almost put themselves in her position in a way to recapture it. This is certainly not what appeals to me, but it's a common internet trait. Being rich definitely helps your cause. Lil Tay is another step in a direction that only seems appropriate for 2018 and will be used to try and vulture into some sort of mainstream clique. Whether it's a step too far for many networks is another question, but I doubt that many companies will flinch at the opportunity to make money, regardless of the moral questions, which, strangely enough, no one seems to be asking. But let's ask some more questions and see if we can deduce any reasonable answers. I think the first thing is, why haven't we been more critical of her age?
I'm 9.
And this isn't necessarily to imply that people have ignored it, but it's more been a bit of a joke, and that's fine. Nothing's wrong with a bit of banter with the lads, but it does seem suspicious and not something that we should be endorsing. The only real issue is that we don't challenge it because we don't see who is managing her. We don't see who is in charge. This brings me back to an earlier point as well. She acts completely antithetically to how a 9-year-old should behave. This creates a seemingly paradoxical situation where people are shocked by the fact that she is 9 years old, but then go on to judge her on the basis of her actions as if she were an adult. Just look at the comments. It also doesn't help that social media acts as a communicative block to the facts that would appear quite clearly if we were to reenact these situations in real life. Chief Keef is standing with a 9-year-old. I'm fairly libertarian when it comes to children's prerogatives, but that's pushing it a bit, isn't it? This also brings us to our next point: the environment. In the commentary community, there is a host of ages, typically ranging from approximately 13 to 40. Now, obviously, there are some barriers within that, but if I were to present you with that scenario in the real world, you'd probably do a double take. However, given the fact that there is a behavioral continuity, it often doesn't feel like that. Some kids are more mature than the adults. People are united by the environment, so nothing seems out of order. Lil Tay utilizes these points. Firstly, she is placed in strictly adult situations, and therefore, although her age may stand out, it doesn't create an alarm, because her behavior, although definitely immature, is well acclimatized to these scenarios. It's not like Danielle Brogoli has walked into a nursery and tried to smack a bitch up, though I wouldn't put it past her. We'll see how desperate she gets. Secondly, everything is sold through the screen. Therefore, they have complete domain to be selective with what they want to show, allowing them to completely sell the side of Lil Tay that they want to. As I will come to soon, it appears there is a lot more going on behind the scenes, but we don't think to question it because the burden of proof would lie on us, and many people aren't willing to go that extra step. Does that make it right? Hell no. I do not think any 9-year-old should be placed in that position, although I do think some children are more well equipped to fame than others. I think such a culture at the age of 9 is incredibly irresponsible. Even if they demonstrate some level of shrewdness, it doesn't reflect a general capability beyond being directed to behave like that. I will expand on why I believe this to be an extremely fragile situation in a bit, but first we need to ask who is behind all this. There have been many questions bouncing around about whose responsibility it is, because although I would like to think that Lil Tay is just cruising around the block in a Bentley, I don't think that she'd get very far if she tried to. Obviously, there is someone arranging all of this. I don't think it's Miranda Cosgrove, strangely enough. I do not believe hers is the main influence of this story. Let's dig a bit deeper. In one Instagram post that seems to be staged to the point of parody, she assaults someone riding a scooter with a cake.
Lil Tay just got verified. Y'all hoes said I wouldn't make it, but bitch, look, I'm verified now. Lil Tay, the youngest flexer of the century. Bitch, I just got verified.
God damn it, what the hell? Ouch! Dang it! Ow! I'm gonna call the police! You're crazy!
Shut your
Ah!
ass up, ugly ass boy.
Aya! Aya! Ow!
Call the police. I don't care, bitch. Shut your ugly ass up.
However, the discussion was very quickly switched to the person riding the scooter, who seemed to be an older man of Asian heritage. Many have conspired that it may be in fact a relative to Lil Tay, although it's unlikely to be her father, whom Lil Tay claims to have left when she was very young. It's left very ambiguous, and they could just be baiting more discussion spurned from the mystery of Lil Tay's existence. She just appeared to materialize out of nowhere, and now we're just rolling with it. However, the clips to me are red herrings, and I'll explain why very soon. Doesn't it all seem a bit surreal? I mean, my theory would typically be that the people involved have basically turned Lil Tay into a cash machine, but that seems strange given the fact that her family appear to already be loaded. I don't think someone seriously buys the fact that this is Lil Tay's own money unless she put her fucking piggy bank into Bitcoin while she was still in the womb. What has been given away by a few clips to me is that Lil Tay isn't just an actor. This doesn't seem completely forced. There seems to be some investment from her, which is quite astounding. There does seem to be an element of realism. Now, of course, it is to be taken with a pinch of salt. We cannot necessarily completely dissect the mentality, but it doesn't appear to me as if it's a 100% puppet show. I say 100% because it's clear to me from her limited vocabulary and explanations she's being somewhat prompted, either from those around her or maybe just the culture that she's immersed in. Maybe she literally got it from TV references. Regardless, there does seem to be some sort of mutual enterprise. Lil Tay is clearly trying very hard to understand how to behave in these situations. Lil Tay claims that her father left when she was very young. Generally, children raised by a single parent may have to end up being a lot more self-sufficient, so it wouldn't necessarily surprise me if Lil Tay has at least a stake in this herself, even if someone else is pulling the strings. So with all this information in mind, instinctively people may point towards her mother. However, a couple of videos are pointing towards someone who may be her brother. Here's a video of him prompting Lil Tay during the Brigoli confrontation. I'm not saying anything certain, but this seems very suspicious, and if true, demonstrates to me that there are some rather exploitive practices occurring. Some claim the person in this clip to be Icy Ricey, another content creator who hastily deleted his content very recently, and was also a massive Rice Gun fan, and also has a link to an inactive Instagram account in which he claims to be, quote, Lil Tay's sister. So if you want my prediction, he's our guy, and he knows what he's doing. Lil Tay's comprehension in what she's doing seems to be this elementary understanding on her behalf rather than the full investment in the reasoning of what comprises a culture. And that makes complete sense. At 9 years old, the way you understand the environments around you is not as developed as it is when you hit your teenage years. And although she's clearly no idiot and much sharper than the average 9-year-old, it demonstrates what needs to be known about her suitability for such environments. Not suitable enough. It seems less of a situation where a relative is simply trying to use their child as an actor to live out their dreams, and more a twisted, westernized Asian dad meme with facilitation where necessary. And whereas pushing for strong grades is certainly one thing, a child being thrown in the public spotlight with something that they may not truly understand is walking a tightrope. And I think it's important to discuss the tightrope that Lil Tay is walking.
Yo, what's up? The youngest flexer. My dream. I didn't do anything to you.
I want to show you a video. This is a video that has been picked up by a few as a sort of true insight into Lil Tay's behavior and how she feels. However, most of them haven't really looked beyond that, and I think it's a much more important clip to this story than many let on.
The haters out there, I know y'all are Rice Gum fans, but just stop reporting my videos. If you actually think Rice Gum is beefing with a 9-year-old, then you just might want to think about that for a second. Me and Rice Gum are friends.
The emotional state is the first thing to notice. To Lil Tay's credit, she has somewhat thick skin, but even this can go too far. Immediately you're struck by the voice cracks, tone, and the fragility that this conveys. This is much more likened to a 9-year-old's behavior. The next thing to notice is the change in usage of reference to her age. Whereas before it was used as a tool to flex and shock, this time it's used to emphasize her vulnerability, much more expectant of someone who behaves like that. You can see she's trying to hold it back. You can see she's trying to repress it. There's a lot of withheld emotion. You can observe this in the coloration of her face, the instability of her lower lip, and the very panicked breaths interspersed. This is not someone who is ready for the lifestyle that she is currently pursuing, or she is currently being told to pursue. Lil Tay states she loves her mother. It's clear in a way that that familial connection is vital to her. She is human, and although she's still trying to chuck in the dialect, the yars, the attitude, it's all immersed. And then there's a breakdown at the end, and it is fucking sad.
Block me. I didn't do anything to you.
And you want to know what this tells me? This tells me that Lil Tay is an emotionally fragile human being, but she's facading it with a lot of persona. Maybe prompted persona, maybe her own persona. But she's repressing what it is like to be in her position, the actual turmoil going through her head. And you know who that exactly resembles? Danielle Bregoli. It's funny that they hate each other, yet they seem to be despicably alike. The issue is that pain has never left. You search for that resolve, that end of the upset, and it will never materialize itself if you continue to repress it. There are many things that I have repressed, and the longer you do it, the further down the slope you slide. All these unresolved emotions that you want to forever avoid, but you cannot. You can only bottle it up so much for so long. Whether Lil Tay was trying to fill the shoes of someone who was never there, whether she behaves like this to ward off people who may try to inflict pain, or whether she's just trying to fulfill her family's wishes. That is something that I cannot decide today. But Lil Tay is not just some spoiled, bratty kid. And it's kind of weird to say that because it's what you immediately go with on first impressions. She's loud, she's obnoxious, she's confrontational, she's everything that you imagine that stereotype to be. But all it takes is one break of character and something else reveals itself. Lil Tay's behavior is an act. I certainly don't think she is ready to be in the public spotlight, and I certainly do not think that this will end well. Plenty of child stars hit the hard concrete of reality eventually, and people with less of an occupation than her have hit it harder. And when you build your own fame off something that seems inherently unsustainable, you are just postponing the inevitable. That is the bitter truth. And while the person who appears to be pulling the strings will probably emerge completely untouched by this, he will take the profit and she will take the scars. The person involved, who seems to be her brother, may be the catalyst of this predicament, and if so, I find his actions to be the most irresponsible. He looks old enough to be aware of the scale of what he is doing, however, maybe not wise enough to realize the possible implications. Only time will tell. Either way, the more I think about the fact that she might be used publicly as a controversy magnet makes me very annoyed, as this guy seems to have avoided the public eye altogether while using her to sponge up a hell of a lot of vitriol that many children her age would not be able to handle at all. We as humans are fascinated with the exceptional. We love to see humanity go one step further with its craziness every time. And make no mistake, Lil Tay is exceptional. There is no doubt about it. There are clearly many circumstances that have allowed her to thrive. And upon a time where it appears that we look for something even more absurd than what we found in Woe Vicky and Danielle Bregoli, we discovered what the people craved. But I do not believe that it is good for her. I do not believe that she is just some vapid brat. I believe that there is someone who desperately needs the right kind of help, but with the current success that her persona provides, it will be seldom found. Her end game is diametrically opposed with how she wants to get there. I have no doubt that she wants to do nice things. She'd love to be friendly. She's probably tried being friendly in the past, but now they found a formula that works for her and they just want to run with it. So maybe with one day the hope that she can end up reaching that state of peace and happiness. But the truth is, it doesn't work like that. For all the realism that Lil Tay may have, her vision of the future is rooted in some fantastical expectations that I do not believe can be fulfilled. Lil Tay clearly hates to receive hatred and negative reception. She's disabled ratings on her content, and as she rallies against them, she'll become more aggressive, trying to thicken that skin of her persona, trying to play it off with the hunnet on her wrist. But as soon as she wants to snap out of it to be that positive person that she briefly shows in her videos, she'll lose the appeal that she had anyway. The other option is to continue to be loud, obnoxious, and unpleasant, but I don't think that's what she truly wants. Just my forecast, and even then, that will fade. It all fades when you behave like that. Lil Tay is fragile. At the end of the day, she's a kid. She's 9 years old, who is in way over her head, and I hope she gets out of it in one. She and others want to tell themselves that they can be this mature, independent baller, but like many others, the superficiality masquerades genuine pain that should be addressed. It's not healthy. It won't last, regardless of how much money she makes. Whoever's in charge should take a serious look at themselves and ask if the legacy will be worth it.
I didn't do anything to you.
I hope, for everyone's sake, that it is. What are your thoughts on the situation? Should Lil Tay escape the flexing persona? And if so, how? And how do we feel about other people who may be playing a role in this? I would love to hear down below. I'd like to give huge thanks to the editors on this project. Once again, another fantastic job. And I will be leaving all their links in the description below. I urge you to check them out, they all have fantastic potential, and make sure you subscribe to them if you enjoy it. Until next time, however, I'm The Right Opinion, and I'll see you in the next one.